Have you ever wondered what it feels like when an animal tries to speak to you with nothing but its eyes and its desperate movements? When every trill and press of the body carries a message you cannot yet understand? Early one misty morning at Black Pine Wildlife Sanctuary, the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and cedar, and the quiet of the forest seemed heavier than usual. John Miller, a seasoned caretaker in his late 50s, moved along the familiar paths, his steps measured but his mind alert for any sign from the animals under his watch. His first stop, as it had been for years, was the Bobcat enclosure, where Bella, a small, profoundly pregnant bobcat, awaited him. She emerged from the shadow of a basalt rock ledge, her golden eyes locking onto his, and instead of the usual calm greeting, she pressed against his legs with a tense insistence, letting out a high, urgent trill that seemed to vibrate with fear. John froze for a moment, understanding immediately that this was not a playful gesture or mere hormonal restlessness. Something was terribly wrong. Mike Davis, a younger keeper, chuckled from a distance, attributing her behavior to nesting instincts, but John knew better. The weight of her swollen belly, the trembling in her back legs, and the desperate gaze she fixed on him made it unmistakable. Bella was signaling a danger that none of the humans could see yet, and time was running out to understand her message. Have you ever felt a bond so deep with another living being that you could sense danger before any words were spoken or signs appeared? That morning at Black Pine Wildlife Sanctuary, John Miller felt it with Bella, the small pregnant bobcat who had been under his care for 5 years. She had been rescued as a traumatized survivor from a poacher's trap, a memory still fresh in her instincts, and over the years, their connection had become almost instinctual. He understood her in a way no one else could. As Bella pressed against him, her body trembling and her trills escalating into desperate whines, John's mind raced, piecing together the subtle signs that something was critically wrong. Mike Davis, a young keeper new to the sanctuary, wandered by pushing a wheelbarrow of feed, his casual laughter cutting through the tension as he dismissed Bella's behavior as typical hormonal nesting instincts. He did not see the swelling in her belly, the unusual stiffness in her movements, or the way her golden eyes pleaded with John alone. John ignored the easy comfort of explanation and focused on the nuances only someone who had lived through Bella's past traumas could notice. Her distress was layered, a complex signal of physical pain intertwined with memories of her lost kittens and the trauma of captivity. He reached for the radio, calling Dr. Emily Carter, the sanctuary's chief veterinarian, and described Bella's unusual behavior, noting that vitals had appeared normal on the remote monitor, but that her physical reactions were beyond what data could convey. When Dr. Carter arrived, she observed Bella from a safe distance, her clinical eye scanning for obvious signs of illness, but John's intuition drove the next steps. He knew that Bella's fear was not simply behavioral, but anchored in a physical problem. He recounted her history to Emily, describing the day he had rescued her from the trap, the hours spent cleaning wounds, administering medication, and carefully building her trust over years. It had taken time for Bella to see him as a source of safety, a line drawn starkly between him and anyone associated with pain or threat. The moment Emily stepped toward the enclosure, Bella's demeanor shifted instantly. Her body tensed, ears flattened, and a low hiss rumbled from her throat, a sound so ancient and raw it carried the weight of every fear she had ever known. John remained calm, positioning himself between Bella and the veterinarian, speaking softly to her, reassuring her presence mattered, that he was not going anywhere, and that she was safe. He explained slowly to Emily that Bella's anxiety was rooted in trauma, and that she associated the approach of a vet with the pain of the past, and that ignoring this connection could push her into panic or even worsen her physical condition. Drawing on his knowledge of wild cats and their instinct to hide weakness, he emphasized how critical it was to proceed carefully, blending clinical observation with the bond they had forged, and the necessity of observing Bella's subtle cues to avoid escalating stress. Emily listened, appreciating John's insight. Together, they began planning a careful approach that balanced urgency with sensitivity, knowing that in creatures like Bella, the line between cooperation and resistance could be razor thin. This delicate dance highlighted not only the vulnerability of a mother-to-be, but also the extraordinary power of trust, proving that sometimes intuition and emotional connection reveal truths that machines and monitors cannot detect. As the sun rose higher over the sanctuary, casting light through the misty pines, the stakes became clear. Bella's behavior was not merely a reaction to hormones or nesting instincts. It was a warning, a message sent in the only way she could communicate, and John was the only one who could understand and act before it was too late. Have you ever faced a moment where every decision could mean the difference between life and death, and the only guidance you had came from a bond built over years of trust? That morning at Black Pine Wildlife Sanctuary, John Miller found himself in exactly that position, with Bella, the small, pregnant bobcat who had been under his care since she was rescued from a poacher's trap. Her body trembled and pressed desperately against his legs, her wide golden eyes staring into his as if begging him to act. Dr. Emily Carter and a specialist, Dr. Robert Harris, had arrived to assess the situation, but Bella's reaction was immediate and intense. The moment the professionals approached, her fear transformed into defensive aggression, ears flattened and teeth bared in a low, ancient hiss that echoed through the enclosure. John positioned himself between Bella and the veterinarians, speaking softly, keeping his hands calm and steady, coaxing her to focus on him instead of the perceived threat. The history of trauma was clear in every movement she made. She remembered the trap, the stillborn kittens, and the pain and fear that had defined her first days at the sanctuary. Dr. Harris explained the options carefully, outlining an emergency cesarean and spay that would remove the infected uterus but doom the unborn kittens, or attempting to treat the infection with antibiotics while keeping the pregnancy, a high-risk choice that could cost them all if the infection progressed too quickly. John's mind raced, recalling the first litter she had lost, thinking of the tiny lives she had fought to bring into the world and the fierce maternal drive that now fueled her desperation. Choosing the second option, he agreed to proceed with the high-risk treatment, understanding that it demanded careful monitoring and his continued presence to keep Bella calm and cooperative. They planned to move her gently into a transport crate to minimize stress, using padded restraints and slow, deliberate movements to maintain her trust, while still allowing the medical team to work safely. Every step was a negotiation. Bella's trembling, whines, and desperate trills were signs of pain and fear, and John responded with steady reassurances, keeping his voice low and consistent, telling her she was safe, she was strong, and he would not abandon her. The drive to the sanctuary clinic was tense and silent, except for John's soft words of comfort, his hand resting lightly against the crate wire, reminding her of the safety she had always known with him. Inside the sterile clinic, the situation escalated as Bella was gently restrained, yet her strength and will still shone through. Her body twisted, muscles taut, eyes wild, but John's presence anchored her. Dr. Carter prepared the ultrasound and other diagnostic tools, while John remained at her side, soothing her with familiar tones and gestures. The first images revealed the kitten's heartbeats, 3 tiny lives clinging to survival inside her. Yet there was a shadow of concern, a dark fluid indicating a severe uterine infection. The team moved efficiently, but with caution. Dr. Harris prepared to draw a sample for immediate analysis, and John's hands held Bella gently, whispering encouragement as the needle was inserted. Her low groan met with his calming words. The moment the fluid was confirmed as an infection, the reality of the danger hit them all. Bella was at risk of sepsis, and without rapid treatment, both she and her unborn kittens could be lost. Yet through it all, the bond between Caretaker and Bobcat became the critical factor. John's steadfast presence allowed the medical team to act, and Bella, though frightened and restrained, trusted him enough to surrender control for her own survival. Each second carried immense tension, the weight of potential loss pressing down on everyone in the room. But John's intuition, patience, and unwavering dedication guided the team through the delicate procedures, turning fear into focused action and hope. Have you ever witnessed a creature fight for its life, not with claws or teeth, but through trust and connection, relying on a bond that transcends words? In the sterile, oxygen-scented ICU of the Sanctuary Clinic, Bella lay on the examination table, her small body trembling beneath the padded restraints that kept her safe without causing pain. Tubes and wires crisscrossed around her, machines monitoring every heartbeat and breath, yet her fear was palpable, radiating from every tense muscle and desperate glance. John Miller sat on a cold metal stool beside her, his voice a constant low murmur, repeating words of reassurance he had learned over years of shared experience. He told her she was safe, that he would not leave her, that she was strong enough to survive this. Each tremble she made was a message, a silent plea that only he could fully interpret, and his steady presence began to anchor her, allowing the medical team to work with minimal interference. Dr. Emily Carter and Dr. Robert Harris moved efficiently, checking vitals, preparing medication, and adjusting oxygen flow. But it was John's calm, familiar voice that held Bella's attention and prevented her panic from spiraling out of control. She flicked her ears toward him, her eyes following his hands as he gently stroked her fur and whispered encouragement. And slowly, her body began to relax, though she remained tense, every muscle alert to perceive danger. Hours passed in a rhythm of care and vigilance. John spoke softly about the sanctuary, the new perches being built for the animals, the warm sun shining outside, and Bella listened, her breathing gradually slowing, her golden eyes blinking with tentative trust. The antibiotics began to take effect, the swelling and inflammation receding slowly, and John remained a constant, leaning close when necessary, retreating slightly when the medical staff needed to work, always keeping her informed and reassured. He could see her understanding in subtle gestures, the shift of her head, the lowering of her tail, the gentle chuff that escaped from her throat when he repeated familiar phrases. It was a language built over years, a delicate communication of safety and hope. By the third day, the change was clear. Bella's eyes were no longer wide with terror, but sleepy and aware, following John's every movement with cautious recognition, and the machines confirmed what he could already see in her behavior. Her fever had broken, and her white cell count was dropping steadily. The tension that had gripped the ICU softened, replaced with cautious optimism. But John did not allow himself to relax completely. He stayed close, knowing that recovery was a process requiring both medical intervention and emotional support. Dr. Carter remained by his side, observing how Bella's response to him facilitated her healing, understanding that for some creatures, the human presence was as critical as any medication. John spoke continuously, telling her stories, reminding her of the sanctuary and the lives waiting for her return, reinforcing her trust and grounding her in the present. Bella's subtle responses were all the confirmation he needed. The slight shift of her head toward him, the occasional soft chuff, the easing of tension in her limbs, every sign was a triumph of patience, trust, and the deep bond between caretaker and wild animal. The ICU, once filled with the anxiety of imminent danger, now held a quiet rhythm of healing. John's unwavering presence became part of the treatment, a testament to the extraordinary power of human connection in moments when words could not reach and only trust could save a life. Have you ever experienced the quiet triumph that comes after surviving a storm? When every heartbeat and every small step forward feels like a victory? Weeks after the harrowing ordeal at the sanctuary clinic, Bella returned to her habitat, moving cautiously at first, her belly still slightly swollen, but her steps confident and sure. John Miller walked alongside the enclosure, not to check her food or water, but simply to witness the resilience he had helped nurture. From the insulated den, he heard a soft, high-pitched squeak, and his heart leapt. Bella emerged, her golden eyes finding his from across the enclosure. Behind her, two tiny spotted kittens stumbled on unsteady legs, blue eyes wide with wonder at the vast, unfamiliar world surrounding them. One was bold, venturing forward first. The other shy, lingering behind, yet both thriving. Evidence of survival against odds that had once seemed insurmountable. John sank to his knees, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude, watching Bella guide and protect her young, her instincts honed by trauma yet tempered by trust and the care he had provided. She approached him, rubbing her cheek against his shoulder in a gesture of affection and recognition, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had carried them through the most perilous hours. For the first time, she purred, a deep, vibrating rumble that filled the enclosure with contentment and peace, a sound John had never heard from her before. It was a moment of profound connection and quiet triumph, a testament to the resilience of life, the power of trust, and the extraordinary impact of patience, empathy, and unwavering presence. Together, Caretaker and Bobcat watched the new lives they had fought so desperately to save, a bond strengthened through fear, struggle, and hope, leaving an indelible mark on John's heart that would last a lifetime.